everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I can't wait to share beers with you and see you in person, in real life, in Las Vegas in just a few weeks. We kick off CBC week with our welcome party on Sunday, April 21st, 7 to 9 p.m. at both Able Baker Brewing and HUDL Brewing Company. First beers on CBP. Come experience our beautiful little community in real life. And huge thanks to Arrived, Beer 30 by the Fifth Ingredient, Craft Brewing Insurance, Flotwig, G4 Kegs, Lotus Beverage Alliance, MarketMyBrewery, Plato, Word Laboratories, and Wipfli for all your support on this event. We really appreciate you. Today, we're going to have a conversation to get you a little more excited to have that pint with us. And let's meet our panelists. And because, Dan, you are to the right of me, you know you get to go first.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for having me. I'm Dan Hornbrook. Geez, I can't even spit out my last name.
You don't even know your own last name.
It's so I'm with BrewLogix, and you know, we as a company, MarketMyBrewery is under BrewLogix here, so we're excited to again be a part of the CBP welcome party. But of course, we're more excited to meet new friends and see our old friends at CBC.
Josh, your turn.
Yeah, howdy, Josh Lindsay here with MarketMyBrewery, as Dan said, part of BrewLogix. You know, always looking for great opportunities to get together with friends, both old and new, as Dan said. Really looking forward to Vegas. I think it's going to be a fun year. There's some great educational seminars that are coming out, and I think this party is going to be a great time to kick things off and connect, and then hopefully continue to foster those relationships through the week and beyond.
Love it. TJ?
Last but not least, right? TJ O'Neill with Wipfli. Super excited to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Andrew. So Wipfli is a CPA-led advisory firm. Ton of work in the brewery space, craft beverage space, whether it's your typical accounting, tax needs, research and development, tax credits, organizational performance, digital strategy, anything in between. So this will be my fourth CBC, and I am looking forward to it. And hopefully what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas, because then we need to take some of the tips and tricks that we're getting out of this conference, right?
And TJ, everyone might also recognize you from the recent spring virtual conference where your face graced every day day 2 session, I should say.
That's right. This mug.
So are you finally going to play us a song on camera?
If we get requests on the chat.
So TJ, in your introduction, everybody hear that request in the chat. TJ, you didn't share that you're also a rock star. Tell us a little bit about your music career playing at breweries.
Yeah, so I guess my most recent one, not necessarily craft. I couldn't say it's a craft brewery, but I was up in Chicago on St. Pat's weekend playing at the Guinness Open Gate Brewery. So that was a ton of fun. I'm from St. Louis originally, born and raised. Still live here with my wife and 3 kids and collection of animals. So that's kind of how I decompress during a long, busy tax season, is by playing some music. So
love it.
We actually put out some content around St. Patrick's Day in Chicago, and I had the Guinness Brewery on there. It looked like a heck of a time.
Oh, it was brilliant, as they would say.
So for the 3 of you, who's been to Vegas before? Let's start there. Okay, we've got all hands up. Quick fire, rapid fire. Dan, what's your tip for just experiencing Vegas as a whole?
Wear comfortable shoes. There's a lot of walking. You know, I would say this, you know, with CBC being in Vegas and there's all the shiny lights that can, you know, carry you this way and that way. I would say, you know, the biggest thing I can say is come with a plan and try to stick to that plan. You know, you're going to be carried away by different attractions there. Maybe even plan some time to go visit those attractions. But, you know, all in all, CBC is going to be a great event. But I think everybody's trying to take away something. So make sure you don't get too far off the path with your walking shoes, that is.
Yeah, you're right there. Good walking shoes are always a plus. And CBC, no matter where it is, you have to plan out the content and the path that you want to take within the convention center. But with all the outside attractions potentially, you know, pulling us at certain times, I think it's so important, even more so than usual, to know where you're going to be.
If anybody I give that tip. If anybody has any blackjack tips, I'm open to that too. So.
Josh, you've been before. Any advice?
Yeah, I would say get off the Strip. Vegas is a great town, and it's more than just the Strip. So being able to go out and adventure. I know there's a couple events going on this week. There's a lot of great breweries in town. The Vegas beer scene has really made leaps and strides. So go support those, check it out, and kind of do some exploring. And I'll do a little bonus tip, but wear a watch. It's very easy to lose track of time. And next thing you know, the sun's coming up and you haven't gone to bed. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You just want to know where you are from a timing standpoint. So get off the Strip and wear a watch.
Not speaking from experience, of course.
Of course not.
Yeah. TJ.
Yeah, number one tip: house always wins. You keep that in mind. You'll end up with a little bit heavier pockets. So definitely keep in mind house always wins. But as far as CBC goes, especially if this is your first CBC, try and front load. If you're looking to talk with specific people, suppliers, vendors, whomever, try and front load some of that and make contacts before you go, because it's such a massive conference. The odds of running into them and being able to carve out time just kind of on the fly is few and far between. So if you've got somebody that you're specifically looking to chat with and have a beer with, reach out to them ahead of time and see if you can get a dedicated calendar appointment.
I think that is an absolute must. And going into my first CBC years ago, I didn't do that till last minute, and it wasn't as valuable for me because I wasn't able to have that intimate time with the people that I wanted to. But moving forward, I've learned a couple things. First off, you got to schedule those appointments. The first year, what I did, I scheduled them hour-long appointments back to back to back. And that kind of leads to what Dan said. Yeah, definitely not do that. You got to walk everywhere. The odds are you're not going to have all your meetings in the convention center lobby. You're going to have a coffee shop meeting. You're going to have a lunch meeting. You need to add in that time to get from each spot. But I also recommend starting early too. I know they're going to be very long days at CBC, but you want to cram in so much. You're seeing people you only see once a year. And, I'll sleep when I get home. I'll sleep on the plane. But it's so important to just make sure I'm building meaningful relationships while I'm there, because there's not enough time even for all of that.
Yeah. And to throw into that, when you meet people there too, make sure you write it down, get a business card, write a note on the business card. You are going to meet so many people. So, maybe if it's that, hey, met this guy, he was the one that we talked about, this and this at this place. You're going to meet so many people. Try to, key in those reminders and identifiers on those people and follow up when you get back.
When it comes to Vegas, you gave us some tips so far, but what are your goals for when you arrive in Vegas to when you leave?
So for BrewLogix as a whole,
I'll take it any way you want.
Yeah. So, we're, with MarketMyBrewery and with MarketMyBrewery, brewers are able to market themselves on our new BreweryDB mobile app. And that app we launched last year at GABF, but we're continuing to promote that. We're going to go out and get some really cool content. As Josh said, the Las Vegas beer scene has really came up. So we want to be able to highlight a lot of those local breweries. From our standpoint, we are launching and debuting brew menu. So we are launching a digital menu that works with an integration with MarketMyBrewery. So breweries, if you're looking for a digital menu that has great marketing functions behind it, it's a dual-edged sword. We will have something for you. So come by our booth and check it out. It's really, really cool. And it's a great price. I'll tell you that. I won't tell you the price right now, but it's a great price.
Well, before you tell us that, I want to know what motivated you to create a menu solution.
Yeah. So, with MarketMyBrewery, you're entering. We made it unique enough. We got rid of the ratings and reviews for people to have to deal with, which is a big pain point for brewers. They're putting in product information that is much deeper. So as the customer experience is growing out there in the world, flavor notes about your products, food pairings about your products, you're able to put all this important information in about your products that customers not only want to know at your brewery tap room, but also if they take away a growler, if they go to the store and they find your product, how can they experience that product the way you want it? And I'm saying you as the brewer, the way the brewer wants that consumer to experience it. So we have all this great product information and the ability for these brewers to do it, which is free. So if you're not leveraging that marketing aspect at your brewery, I definitely recommend going and getting a MarketMyBrewery account. But what else can you do with that product information in your tap room and make it easily accessible, elevate the customer experience? It was a no-brainer for us to bring a digital menu to the market. There's obviously some pain points out there. We see it in CBP all the time with the menus. So it was easy for us to make that decision to kind of translate over to the menu products. So yeah, again, we're super excited. And BrewLogix overall, we're focused in the on-premise. And how we're elevating that customer experience is, right now we see brew menu as the next option.
Excited to experience it. Now, Josh, you're also at the same company as Dan, but I imagine you have slightly different goals. And I didn't mean to kick Dan out just now when I started talking to you, but somehow he disappeared. But, what are your goals?
Yeah, I think for me, again, I always, first and foremost want to go and be able to support BrewLogix and what we're doing and be able to share that mission. But two, a little bit of it is self-serving. You mentioned it earlier. You don't get to see these people all the time. So for me, it's always great to connect with friends, kind of understand what's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of digital conversations. There's a lot of Zoom conversations. There's not as many face-to-face conversations in the world today, or what I was used to previously. So, I really leverage this time to not only connect with existing connections and really have that time to raise a pint. I frequently sign off with until the next pint. And I truly mean it, because I try to savor that opportunity to share a pint with people in person. So really, that's a big goal for me, is connecting with those folks and then meeting new folks. The many years of going to this, I've been able to make some lifelong friends and people that I know I can rely on, and hopefully that feel the same way towards me. So it's a lot of meaningful connections, a lot of opportunity to share what we do as a company that helps elevate, but then in turn, kind of enjoy the time. Life's short, and beer is meant to be fun.
For you, Josh, you talked about how things have changed. We're not seeing people in person as much as, we were, say, even just a few years ago, because of things like this, connecting so easily on the internet. How has that impacted the industry being connected to one another?
I think in a way it's improved communication. Like, there's a lot more sharing. There's a lot more collaboration. Things like what CBP has done with Panel Fest and Spring Virtual Conference, and then coming back to face-to-face. But I think sometimes that best practice, or that sharing, comes with sometimes rosy colored glasses, whereas we're not really getting to the bad parts. You don't want to say that stuff out loud, or you don't want it recorded. So being able to have those face-to-face conversations, I think, just allows people to really open up, but also gives an opportunity to kind of just like get more of the conversation, get more of the understanding of what's being said. And I won't dive into the science of communication, all of that, but to me, like, nothing will ever replace the face-to-face. And ultimately, that's what beer does. It brings people together. So taking that part away is taking a big part of what has made this industry.
I couldn't agree more. I love the ability we have to connect so easily, but there's something special about sharing the pint, being right next to somebody, or having that conversation.
For sure.
Now, TJ, what are you excited about, and what are your goals for CBC?
Excited about CBC, first and foremost. It's always the highlight it's always off the tail of tax season, which is great. It's a nice way to reward myself for 3 months of hard work and dedication. So looking forward to that, first and foremost. But CBC, to Josh's point, the in-person interaction, that's what I thrive off of. That's what charges my extroverted batteries. So going out and doing that, and really the key for us is meeting with some of our current clients, some prospects, and making more of the strategic relationships that we really lean on in the industry. Because that's kind of our bread and butter. We do what we do well, but there are so many great allied trade members, vendors, suppliers that do things that are very supplemental to what we can provide. And when we get together and start thinking of ideas, it's just good. It's better for the industry. It's better for everybody. And so continuing these strategic partnerships and touching base and making some new contacts, that's what I'm really excited for. And we've got our digital team that's coming out this year. So the past few years, it's been more of the traditional accounting focused individuals. And now we've got some more of our, the Wipfli digital team. So excited to get them introduced to, CBC and more ingrained in the industry, and kind of see the waves that we're making.
Looking forward to meeting them. Now, TJ, in the finance accounting side of things, what trends are you seeing right now? Good, bad, ugly? I'd love to hear kind of what you're experiencing on the daily.
Yeah, from a traditional accounting side, the growth has always kind of been an issue, and we've seen pretty stagnant growth throughout the last couple of years, even a little bit of decline. And obviously, that's going to come and go with. For a while, it was the seltzer world, and now you've got the ready-to-drinks that are kind of saturating the market a little bit. As a tax individual, I think the biggest concern that I have is some of the legislation that's pending in DC right now, specifically around the research and development tax credit. So just a little tax nerd.
Nerd out of this one. Tell us more.
Going to. So the R&D credit is a lot of times it's referenced is a dollar for dollar tax credit for breweries, that if you are coming up with new processes, new products, new procedures, it's a way to offset any tax liability. that you might have at the end of the year. So think of, creating new formulas, creating new keg filtration techniques. If I'm trying to drop the caloric content of one of my beers, or if I'm exploring an NA beer, an NA beer production, all of these costs, whether it's labor, supply costs, contract labor, they get wrapped up and put into this bucket. And historically, what you used to be able to do is you would just deduct those costs like you normally would on your tax return. Well, currently under the law effective, I guess 2022 is the first year that we saw it happen. Rather than deducting those when you paid for them, you have to capitalize those. So essentially, you're putting them on your balance sheet, and you just take that deduction over a 5-year period. And what ended up happening with that was, a lot of these breweries say, I spent $500,000 in research and development on some new products, new formulas, new procedures. Normally, I would be able to deduct that, no big deal. Now that I lose that deduction, which is effectively creating $500,000 of additional taxable income that now I'm on the hook for, and it's phantom income. So it's not like I have cash to just immediately pay that tax liability. So that's across the manufacturing sector, but specifically in the craft beverage space. I mean, it's really killing some of our, I can't even say some of our smaller breweries, really all breweries that have R&D activities. And so there's legislation in DC right now to try and repeal that and get it back to where we were able to immediately expense that. But between that, bonus depreciation was 100%. So if I bought a new canning line, I was able to write that off day one. Well, now I can only take 80% of that deduction, or in 2024, I take 60%. So that benefit's dropping until it ends up being zero. And you have to depreciate that over 7 years. So there's quite a bit of manufacturing considerations in this pending legislation that are really affecting the craft beer scene and craft beverage scene in totality.
That is a great recap right there.
Yeah, thanks.
It's not something I would dig up. So I'm not in that world, but I'm very appreciative of knowing that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that affects everybody somehow, right? Because if you've got $500,000 of additional income, you got tax liability on top of that. Well, where are you cutting? Where are you cutting spending? Is it on the marketing side? Yeah. So that then affects, BrewLogic's MarketMyBrewery. Are you then shopping around your accounting? Because that would then affect, our group. So it really is kind of a trickle effect.
Yeah. Now, Dan, on the BrewLogic side, what are some trends that are exciting you right now?
Yeah. So, with us, again, we're focused really in the on-premise, and right now we definitely see this trend of hospitality is the success kind of avenue for breweries. So adding food trucks. If you're just a tap wall only tap room, you're probably struggling a little bit. I'm sure there's some successful ones out there, so I don't want to knock them all. But for us, we're focused definitely on the on-premise. We see people wanting to get to breweries. Breweries are doing a fantastic job still of really creating unique experiences, and that's what consumers are really trying to. They're trying to connect with brands and the experiential things that they get at the brewery. So I think it's a great opportunity for us as BrewLogics to continue to drive consumers to these tap rooms and to continue to build our technology to help these breweries leverage that as much as they can.
Now, Dan, let's talk food for a second. You interact with a lot of breweries. What tips do you have for breweries, say they don't have much of a food program right now, maybe just a bag of chips? What should they do to ramp it up and make it a little more robust?
Yeah, I was talking with someone the other day. They're in equipment. They run some kitchen equipment, and they see the same thing that we see, kind of what I just said. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, right? Like invest in the panini maker, invest in these smaller things that you can easily make within a short amount of time. It doesn't have you don't have to have a whole spread of burgers and chicken and ribs and the line goes on down the line. Like, just be really good at a couple things, and people will buy them. People they may not buy them, but again, you don't have to go $1 million kitchen right out of the gate. Like, buy a couple quality items. I'm sure you can buy the pizza stoves to create some simple pizzas and things like that, and just kind of let it pay for itself over time and continue to grow that. But again, you don't have to be a bag of chips, but again, I love a good panini. Just make me a warm sandwich and I'm a happy camper.
Well, and
good
also
family
too, as
tip.
a member of the CBC seminar subcommittee, I would recommend that you show up to the educational sessions. There are several really great ones that are going to hit on food. I think one of the panelists is sitting with us right now. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Plan to be at those educational seminars if that is where you see yourself, because they're having reviewed these decks and talked to these speakers. There's some really great information sharing that's going to happen at CBC this year. And we all know that we're at a pivotal time in our industry. So taking that aspect seriously will help you tremendously down the line. And then there's some great resources afterward with some of the learning sharing that's going to happen after the event.
Yeah, I think a challenge that everyone's facing is we want more butts and seats. We want those people who are there spending more money. And, food is definitely a way you can captivate people's attention more and, get them spending a little bit more. It's really fun that the data shows, Josh, that when you add food to your menu, we're talking not just like a bag of chips, but something more substantial above the $10 price point, those tabs increase in size 88%. When you go from no food to adding a substantial like food menu in there, 88% increases in tabs. And so often you'll go to a brewery. I'm sure all three of us here today have had it happen. We're at a brewery 5:30, we have a pint, our stomach starts to rumble a little bit. The brewery doesn't have any food. Well, instead of having that next pint at the brewery, we're going next door to order a pizza and having a couple more beers, and they're getting the bulk of our money for that night. So I know breweries want to be the place where the guests are spending for sure.
Absolutely.
I think to what you just said, Andrew, it's not so much about capturing them out of the gate. It's about keeping them around. And that's food is a great way to keep people around for a little bit more.
Now, Josh, you spent so much time on the education side of our industry. Do you have any tips off the top of your head for, say, we're adding some sort of food option to the brewery? How can staff best encourage it to the guests, or placement, anything with regard to selling more food?
Yeah, I think, selling more food equals selling more beer, right? I think figuring out what are the threads that hold those together. I mean, at the end of the day, beer is a food product. Unless the FDA is listening, then it's not. We don't want it to be. But nonetheless, when you're talking about food, how can you romanticize the food element just like you're romanticizing the beer? And I think that's the thing. Like, if you approach food to the level of quality that you're approaching your beer, you're set up for success. So how can you thread things like pairings? How can you thread things like experiential? Hey, you've got a big group. I'd love to recommend a couple appetizers for the table. Here's our favorites. And oh, by the way, grab a flight. You can try all these different flavor interactions. Like, you can be as simple as, hey, this is my favorite thing on the menu, or as complex as, hey, this is the perfect beer pairing, and let me tell you all about it. So I think from an educational standpoint, it's making sure that your team has the resources to understand what those potentials are and setting them up for success. Do you have an audience where it makes sense to put those on the menu? Maybe, maybe not. Do you have an audience that wants to dive deep? Maybe, maybe not. But again, thinking through all of that, making sure that your team has what's needed to be able to meet that occasion in the moment, I think is the key element. Because I think it goes beyond just bringing food to tap rooms. A big trend that I'm seeing is bringing multiple tap rooms to the world. It used to be 1-to-1 for the most part. Most breweries had one tap room. Now we're seeing, there's breweries that have 5, 6, 10 tap rooms. So again, I think that same level of knowledge, making sure that as you're expanding, whether it's a food program, whether it's a new location, whether it's a new experiential piece of your existing location, that you're making sure that your staff has the tools needed to be able to maximize what that expansion opportunity is.
Josh, we'll dive more into that trend about multiple tap rooms now, because I'm fascinated by it as well. What are your thoughts on it? Why are these breweries doing it? How are they making it work?
I think it's great. At the end of the day, we are all, as a community, as an industry, we are trying to bring people into the fold. And sometimes people don't want to venture out of their neighborhood. Sometimes people just don't know where to look. Oftentimes, I don't want to say the most loyal, but the most explorative of us, we found ourselves in industrial parks and loading docks with not really sure if we're in the right place, looking for some sign that this might be, that's not as inviting. That was a necessary thing at the moment, and it worked. But I think when you look at today, it's all about creating that experience and meeting the people where they are. And so, I'm up here in Indianapolis, and we had Beer Brewery, who has several locations, just opened a brand new one in Noblesville. And not only did they take what they were already doing well, but they added in a huge outdoor beer garden. They added a play place, knowing that that's a family-friendly environment. So I think the trend that I find exciting and what's going to make it successful is not taking a concept that works somewhere and just planting that somewhere else. It's really ingraining yourself into that community, seeing what do they need. Do they need a community center where families can come? Does that fit your mission and your values? Boom, you've got a match made in heaven. Do they need a disc golf course? Do you align with outdoor activities? Boom, you have the opportunity there to go do that. So again, ingraining yourself in the opportunity, or understanding what the opportunities are in the community that you're looking to expand, and meeting the community in the middle, or even going further to make sure that they have what they need in your space.
A lot of good tips there. TJ, what are your thoughts from the financial side of things about adding more tap rooms? Any tips, any precautions? What are your feelings?
I mean, number one tip, talk to your CPA, right? Talk to your advisor, because there are going to be times where you're looking at the numbers and does it make sense, right? Are we going to let the tap room tail wag the dog? Do we want to open a new location just for sake of opening a new location, right? And area planning too is a lot of it. Josh had mentioned earlier, one of the examples more recently that I've seen. So I'm down here in St. Louis. Shout out to Four Hands down here in St. Louis. Started down in the city off Broadway. They just opened up something west, kind of out in the Chesterfield area. It's a St. Louis suburb, and it's a completely different concept because the area out here is much more family centric. There's a ton of baseball fields and soccer fields kind of in that area. So they're looking for how do we get those families and pull them in. And so, Four Hands could have opened up a second tap room years ago based on the success, and they could have thrown another one in the city just for sake of doing it. But from a cost perspective, what's our ROI? Are we taking sales volume away from our own, original tap room and spreading that out? Are we 10 blocks away? Or are we right down the street? Or are we in a completely different part of town? Is it making sense, and how do we assign dollars to it? But first and foremost, talk to your advisors, get some input from your staff too. They see the trends better than anybody because they're the ones that are pouring the beers. They're the ones that are answering the questions from the customers.
The three of you have great insight from your business side of things, but I'd like you to put your consumer hats on for a minute. We've mentioned experience. We've talked about hospitality. We've added in food. When the three of you look for visiting a brewery, what are you looking for? Like, if you had to list the 3 criteria, if you want to put it in a specific order, more than welcome to. If you want to just throw out those 3 in no specific order, I'll take that as well. But I'd love to hear the things that you personally are looking for when planning a brewery visit.
I'm happy to kick it off. I think I love brewery visits. I've been lucky enough to go to hundreds around the world. So I'm always looking for that new place. But I will say the criteria that I'm looking for has changed. I've found myself in a stage of life where I've got a 2-year-old and a newborn on the way. And so, if they're with me, I'm looking for a place where we're not going to be disruptive to other people who are trying to have a good experience and be welcomed. I've heard the term family tolerant versus family friendly. So in a lot of instances when I'm with my family and get to spend some good quality time with them, that is one thing I'm looking for. By no means saying that every brewery has to be family friendly, but again, in this stage of life, that's something I'm looking for. Good beer is obviously a big one for me. I've appreciated the liquid in the glass for a long time and still do. And so seeking out, maybe a place that compromises on the family friendly for good liquid, I'm willing to compromise there, depending if how good of a mood my wife is in. But so family friendly, good beer, and then, an experience, right? Something that's new. Something that isn't just, sitting outside in a picnic table trying to, scarf down my beers because I'm getting a look or my kid's ready to go, so something where we can do something that we can engage in more than just the liquid, because at the end of the day, my wife's been pregnant for the last 9 months. My daughter's obviously not drinking beer. And so, I want them to have a good experience too. It's not just about me. So, in that stage of life, it truly is. And I don't think anyone's more important than the other, but all 3 of them are huge considerations: being family friendly, having great quality beer, and then having an experience that we can kind of all engage with.
I would say my list is very, very similar to yours. It's funny, going to family-friendly breweries. My son's 4.5. It's crazy the things children understand. For everyone without kids, you might not understand this, but I think you will. I mean, he literally knows what a QR code is and how to scan it for a menu. That's one of those things I never thought about, let alone a kid learning how to do. It just blows your mind sometimes.
The things you learn at breweries.
That's right.
Education. That's what they're all about. So TJ, what do you look for when you plan a brewery visit?
I mean, it's going to be super similar to Josh's, honestly. I've got 3 young ones spanning from 7 months to almost 6 years old now. So being able to, have them keep themselves busy within an earshot and an eye shot is definitely appealing to me. I'm a big aesthetics guy, so I love a really good patio. Not your 4 or 5 picnic tables outside, but just a good, well thought out patio. I think back to like Big Beach Brewing down in Gulf Shores. That's one of my favorite spots. It's just got an awesome, quaint little patio, paver patio. Just really good vibes. The beer, obviously, is, good quality beer, but also variety too. I drink any and all types of beers. If you've got 10 IPAs and 1 Czech Pils, that's great. I can drink 10 IPAs. I don't know that I want to, especially if it's a family function, right? So just a good variety of
I'm
beers.
just curious why you didn't go with the Czech Pils, honestly.
I do go with the Czech Pils usually. And whenever you guys can steal this, whenever I'm at a brewery, conference or event or something, and I have to do a mic check, I always say I've got a New Zealand Pilsner and a Czech one too, a Czech one too. So you can take that. But between the variety of beers, family friendly, I love, if you couldn't tell, I love good live music. I love going and listening to somebody else besides myself play. I think it's a really good way to just keep people around. You hear some good acoustic or even just a good live band out on a patio. Odds are you're going to stay for 1 or 2 more. And the food plays in with that too. Good quality food's going to keep you there longer. So that's kind of 4. I bastardized Josh's a little bit, so I hope that suffices.
And it's somewhat obvious, but you mentioned, drinking 10 IPAs and made me think about, pacing yourself at CBC. Well, it's something we always say that we're going to do. When you have all your friends from across the country who want to go to one more party that night, you got to really be mindful of it. And, I really enjoyed CBC in Minneapolis. I know some people weren't a huge fan of the location, but I liked it for the fact that all the breweries had some sort of NA option for the most part.
Yeah.
Which made it a lot easier to make it through the day and night.
Yeah. And I've seen it recently within the last 8 months. I've seen a lot of breweries that I frequent now have, whether or not they brew it themselves, they have NA options where, again, 8 to 12 months ago they did. Or maybe they had 1 and now they have 4. So I think that's obviously when we start talking about a little bit of the dilution in the market, I think NA is offering an option for some of these consumers that otherwise might not be attracted to craft beer. So it's a way for us to differentiate ourselves as an industry and really try and get some of that market share back. So very excited for that.
Yeah.
Dan, lay it on us. What are your top?
I'm gonna make it quick and simple. I was just down in Panama City with the family, like I told you before we jumped on, and these are the 3 filters. I'm gonna shamelessly plug BrewDB again that I used on the app. It was kid friendly full service menu, and I wanted the brewery to have cider as well because my wife likes cider. So it kind of goes into what you guys said, kind of having that variation of what's on tap or what's available to drink. And so those were kind of the 3 filters that I used just recently. So some of those align with all the other guys. So I think family friendly is kind of important for at least us 4 here.
Well, I guess as a counterpoint too, for those who aren't looking for family friendly, I guess when I'm by myself, I'm looking for an engaged staff too. Like if I have the time to sit and nerd out about beer, like I love sitting at the bar. I always tend to meet people, or I typically tend to meet people, but I love to just engage the bartender and ask them, what's popular, what's drinking fresh, what makes you excited about the brand. Like I think an engaged staff is a huge part of it. So I know not every brewery is family friendly, and I think that's okay. Oftentimes when I am by myself, I'm looking for the opposite. I'm looking for a little bit of a scapegoat so that I'm not hearing yells and screams. So I think that's totally okay too. And I think that doesn't necessarily get talked about enough. There's a lot of focus on family friendly, but it's okay to not be family friendly as well. There's people looking for that.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what your goals are for the visit. If you're bringing the family along, Josh, what you're looking for is going to be a little bit different than when you and your wife have a date night. When my wife and I have a date night, we're going to go to like the hole in the wall brewery that has, 10 bar stools and that's about it. And where we can't bring our kid versus the place that serves pizza and has a patio we can run around.
Yeah. Right. Totally.
So Josh, we've talked a lot of taproom stuff today. I love taproom stuff. That all day long we can have these conversations. But, for people going to CBC who operate in the taproom space, is there any extra tips you have for them?
Yeah, we're really excited. We're at BrewLogix are putting out a taproom playbook. And that came from kind of the thought that when you walk the floor of CBC, there's a lot of beautiful, shiny stainless. There's a lot of really sexy wood. There's a lot of really cool things that is mostly focused on the operation side. And to be honest, that makes sense. About 80% of the attendees are on the operation side. They're on the production side. So what we did is we reached out to some of our favorite partners, vendors across the space that are going to be at CBC, and have put together a guide to really help guide you, whether you're able to attend at CBC in person, when you walk the floor, and it can take you days just to walk it once. So what we want to do is pull some booth numbers for you, pull some concepts of what these folks do, so that if you're looking for something specific, we can give you some guidance to kind of navigate that floor. And then for those of you who aren't able to go, maybe your director of ops or your production team is going, and unfortunately the taproom staff and the marketing staff had to stay home to tend to the brewery. We wanted to make sure that you also had a list that you could reach out to after the fact. Again, these are some partners that we truly believe in that are doing some great things for the taproom and hospitality. So we'll be sending out our taproom playbook both via email to all of our MarketMyBrewery users. We'll be plugging it on our social. You can obviously reach out to me if you want to make sure that you're on that list. I'm josh.lindsay@brewlogics.com. Or post in CBP, and we'll be sure to share it out. Because again, we want to make sure that if you're attending CBC and you're looking for taproom focused resources, that we can kind of be a little bit of a guiding light for you, both at the show and post the event.
No, I love that. How have we not really talked about the trade show until now? I mean,
There's a lot to
very, very overwhelming. Definitely have a plan. And Josh, what you all have created to give people in the taproom space kind of a guide of where they should visit and who they should talk to, it's so valuable. Finding trusted partners is so important. And, as part of this community of CBP, we also have a library of partners that we really enjoy working with, who've been great supporters of the community. Dropping it in the chat and show notes for everyone to check out. But, this event couldn't be possible without the support of our partners like MarketMyBrewery and Wipfli. And Dan, I'll say BrewLogics too, because you wear a few different hats there. So we appreciate all of you. Now, as we wind this conversation down, you've given some tips, you've given some recommendations, you've given some things to, maybe always keep in mind while you're in Vegas, so to speak. But if you had to leave people with a final thought of something you haven't said before about going to CBC, what would that be? Any final piece of advice?
Mine can be a little bit grotesque, so I'm gonna keep it kind of PG here, but after the first day, don't plan on using the restroom at the CBC show. It is not a happy environment there. Plan on using your hotel restroom. That is a pro tip there. There's a lot of drinking and a lot of food going on the night before, and that's got to go someplace. So
those pipes don't know what hit them.
Yes.
I would say, to bring it back, that is a good tip. I will definitely agree with
Great
that.
Tip. Insider info.
But I would say, right now, if you haven't already, or in the next couple of days, make a list of what you want to accomplish. I mean, at the end of the day, you're making an investment, or your company is investing in you to allow you to be there and to encourage you to be there. So make a list of what you want to accomplish and check yourself. Check yourself when you're on the airplane on the way there. Check yourself when you check into the hotel. Check yourself that night, the morning, and just make sure that you're achieving those goals. I mean, CBC is a great educational opportunity. It's a great opportunity for us all to come together. It's also a great opportunity to have a damn good time. And I hope everybody does that. But again, I think having that list right now while you're thinking about it, and start it today and finish it as you lead up, and then making sure you achieve those goals. There's certainly been times where I'm like, I have this great plan, and I get caught up in the moment, and then I walk away and I'm like, dang, I forgot to go connect with that person, or I didn't get the contact information I needed for this. And I kicked myself in the butt for a year until I could do it or reach out. But again, it wasn't that same experience. So that would be my biggest tip. Make a list and check yourself on it each day to make sure you're accomplishing your goals for both you and your company, and walk away with some tangible action items.
And Josh, to piggy off you, TJ, will you take us home in a minute? So often when we all go to these conferences, we kind of forget for a moment that we won't be completing the tasks that are part of our normal responsibilities. So when you go to CBC, instead of me being on my laptop 8 hours a day, or you being in your tap room, making sure everything's going smooth, how are things going to operate when you're not doing your typical role? So I think planning ahead, not just for your time at CBC, but how is everything going to run smooth while you're not at the brewery? And how are you going to accomplish those behind the scene tasks while you're attempting to learn and meet a billion people over a hectic, 4.5 days?
And several pints.
Now, TJ, final thoughts. It's on you.
Yeah, so I'm going to piggyback off Josh's. So, visualize what a successful conference looks like, right? You put together these goals. What does it look like? You come away from CBC and you say, wow, that was awesome. But first and foremost, I think it's important to remember that this one conference is not the end all be all. If you don't meet everybody you wanted to meet, if you don't hit all those goals that you want to hit, this is not the only event in the industry. Get involved with CBP, get involved with the state guilds. I mean, this is an ecosystem. This is a very relationship driven industry. You're not going to accomplish everything that you want to accomplish going to one conference a year. And so make sure that you are, if your goals really are to make a splash in the industry and make more contacts and these strategic partnerships and relationships, you can't just expect to do that in one trip out to Vegas. So get involved with as many industry groups as you possibly can, and make sure you follow up. To Dan's point earlier, you get those business cards, follow up quick. Usually I try and do it at the airport because it's, I got nothing else to do. Follow up quick and follow up often, because again, it is so relationship based, and there's so many people that are out there peddling their products, their services, their malt, their barley, what have you. It really is all about who you know and who you like.
Oh, those are some great tips there, TJ. And one takeaway that I had from what you just shared is getting the work done at the airport. While it seems like, oh, do I really want to do this? I found it actually really valuable. I had a longer than I would have liked flight delay getting back from the Albany, New York State Brewers Conference recently. But I took that time to pull out those business cards. I looked at my notes per Dan's suggestion, and I remembered who these people were, what we talked about, and what I need to reach out on. And it made my life a little bit easier when I got home to deal with real world live problems, so to speak.
Yep.
I will say one of my favorite things, TJ and Andrew, is going a little bit early to the airport, getting a beer, flipping the laptop open, and taking care of it. So
love it.
Throw a beer in there. Celebrate.
So I feel like people fall under two hats. So the people who like working in coffee shops and airports, and the people who can't get any work done.
Got to throw the headphones in.
It's the admin work. The admin
I can do
work.
the beer part, the admin part. I'm out.
Well, with that said, everybody prepare for CBC, plan ahead, and make sure you RSVP for all of our events together. It's April 21st, 7 to 9 p.m. at Abel Baker Brewing and HUDL Brewing Company. You don't want to miss it. Our time together in Nashville, we were at Jackalope, was an amazing time. I can't wait to see everybody again. And if anybody wants to grab a coffee or just a beer on the side, or maybe even some lunch, hit me a message. I'm all about building those relationships. So Josh, TJ, Dan, I appreciate you and all your company's support. I'll see you in a few weeks in Vegas. Cheers.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Cheers.
Looking forward to it.